Go, May 15th, 2022. That's today, right? Yes. God bless you. It's Sunday morning. Thank you for coming to church. Thank you for being together. We're preparing a nice lunch for everybody to celebrate just another Sunday. I thought we celebrated God's Day this month and True Parents' birthday and the history of the Unification Church and Easter Sunday. We'll just have a regular Sunday today. So that's what we're going to do. I'm Reverend Walter Frank Jr., pastor of Family Church of San Diego, part of Family Federation for World Peace and Unification, and for Heavenly Parents Holy Community worldwide. A lot of names. So let's start with a little humor. This is for Bob's neighbor. Whoa. Look, Bob, I painted my fence. You can imagine the neighbor complaining about that fence over and over again. Okay, let's go. Walnut Grove Baptist Church. What do the Baptists have to say? Just love everyone. I'll sort them out later. God. Which is our belief, actually. We have a strong belief that love is salvation. Love is salvation. 2, treat others as you would like to be treated. I think that was what Jesus said, right? Let's do another one. How about this one? Knox Presbyterian Church. God expects spiritual fruit, not religious nuts. That's important. Don't be a religious nut. I find your lack of faith disturbing, by Darth Vader. Living Proof Church. This one's not funny. Before and after photo of a boy who beat cancer. Before, after. That's something to appreciate, isn't it? God bless that little boy. It doesn't say who his name is, but I thought, wow, what a great picture of hope that is. This year, thousands of men will die from stubbornness. Signed, men, no, we won't. No, we won't die from... Okay, here's a real sermon. You guys ready? Yeah. Okay, what do we learn from modern science about love? Right, I've done many articles from doctors, medical professions, that love is life. From the principle of creation, we understand that God is love. And God expects us to receive God's love, and was challenged by the fact that we don't receive God's love all the time. God's sad by that, right? Bible says that God mourns the fact that we don't understand who He is or how much love God has for us. We don't understand God's plans to prosper us. So we are created in the image of God. So here's Mark 12:30 through 31. And this is obviously one of the central tenets of the church. And that is, love the Lord your God with all your heart, and with all your soul, and with all your mind. One of the things Divine Principle teaches is we need to love God with our mind. It's great to love God with your heart and your soul, but mind is really important, that we understand the concepts and precepts of God's law and God's heart, and with all your strength as well. Our principle of creation explains to receive love is to grow spiritually. When we receive God's love, it gives us an opportunity to grow spiritually. And there's varieties of love, right? There's varieties of love we teach. There's conjugal love, husband and wife love. There's parental love. There's friendship love, brother and sister love. There's intergenerational love, grandparents love. But not everybody can be in those relationships, right? So there's other universal types of love. For example, love of nature is universal. And even if you're not a grandparent, you're not a husband, you can still receive God's love through the love of nature, which we consider really important aspect of the varieties of love God prepares for you to receive. Okay? Reverend Moon teaches about this a lot. So here's some of the things. For the 9 years, Reverend Moon, after he received Jesus, prayed and received answers to his questions about God, about the purpose of creation, the responsibility of human beings, the future of mankind, and other similar topics, right? And also, one of the things that Reverend Moon said, one of the most essential elements of the Divine Principle for the 21st century is to unite both science and religion together. that they're both, what do we say, both sides of the same coin. They're just two different ways of looking at and understanding God, right? So Reverend Moon graduated with a degree in electrical engineering from Waseda University, we believe, in 1945. So in 1945, in Japan, he would have become familiar with the works and thoughts of findings of Isaac Newton, right? Who was a Christian who felt that science was a type of language of God. He thought that science, what he's studying when he's studying physics, he's not just studying things, he's studying the mind of God. That's what Reverend Moon teaches us in Divine Principle. Faraday's work, Michael Faraday's work and definition of electrical fields, he was a very strong Christian. He's very interesting. Faraday, although he invents electric motors and electric generators, and essentially he unites the ideas that electricity, that light, magnetism, electricity are all the same thing. That was his one great gift to human beings, right? So everything you have about electricity right now, right? Electricity is powering the fans and lights, all comes from Faraday's invention. It all comes from there. Einstein's theory of relativity was published in 1905, 1906, so it would be well developed by the time Reverend Moon went to school. The answers he received from God and Jesus, he wrote that in a book called Divine Principle, and he relates these ideas to God's heart. So let's read a couple of these guys. This is a historical figure, Michael Faraday, considered the founding father of electrical science. Volta did create the first chemical battery, but chemical batteries are very limited. He created the first mechanical electric generators and inventor of induction motors. So everything you have that runs on electricity comes from Michael Faraday. You know, he was a very, very strong Christian. Here's what he said. Faraday's life and passion for science can be best summed up in his own words. I cannot doubt that a glorious discovery in natural knowledge and the wisdom and power of God in the creation is awaiting our age, that we may not only hope to see it, but even be honored to help and obtain the victory over present ignorance and future knowledge. Now, he was interesting to me because he didn't go to college. He came from a very poor family, was a foster child, and worked in a laboratory and became one of the smartest people ever, became one of the great inventors of all time. And he strongly believed in Christianity. And he believed, again, like many scientists thought, that what he's discovering is the mind of God. That's what he's discovering. So, yet even in earthly manners, I believe that the invisible things of him from the creation of the world are clearly seen, being understood by the things that are made, even his eternal power and Godhead. And I have never seen anything incompatible between those things of man which can be known by the spirit of man, which is within him, and those higher things concerning his future, which he cannot know but by spirit. Does that sound familiar? Yeah. Isn't that the principle of creation? Isn't that in the first chapter of the principle of creation? How about this one? Albert Einstein. Everyone who is seriously involved in the pursuit of science becomes convinced that a spirit manifests in the laws of the universe, a spirit vastly superior to that of man, and one in which the face of which we, with our modest powers, feel humble. In this way, the pursuit of science leads to a religious feeling of a special sort, which is indeed quite different from the religiosity of someone more naive. So he said, look, I don't believe in I don't believe in Greek gods or what kind of weird gods, but I do believe the mind of God is what creates the physical world we live in. He says, in view of such harmony in the cosmos, which I, with my limited human mind, am able to recognize, there are yet people who say there is no God. But what really makes me angry is that they quote me for the support of such views. So Einstein clearly believed that there is a mind of God. He didn't believe in many, odd religious truths, but he did believe the mind of God is sublime and perfect. This is by Max Planck, right? Creator of quantum theory. They actually knew each other quite well. Even though Max Planck's quantum theory is 180 degrees different than Einstein's theory of relativity, they both understood that Planck's quantum theory contradicts his theory of relativity. But they didn't know how. But they didn't know how to resolve the problem. By the way. Anyhow, this is what he says. As a physicist, that is, a man who has devoted his whole life to wholly prosaic science, the explanation of matter, no one would surely suspect me of being a fantasist, thinking of fantasies and things like that. And so, having studied the atom, I am telling you there's no matter as such. All matter arises and persists only due to a force that causes the atomic particles to vibrate, holding them together in the tiniest of solar systems, the atom. Yet in the whole of the universe, there is no force that is either intelligent or eternal. We must therefore assume that behind this force, there's a conscious, intelligent mind or spirit. This is the very origin of matter. Again, all these scientists believe that there's a mind that we call God that created the universe and rules the universe. So what he's saying with this is there's no outer space aliens, there's no human being, there's nothing that can create the universe. It must be something completely spiritual that holds the universe together. Now this is an interesting one because he's the only one who comes after what Reverend Moon writes. He comes after what Reverend Moon's divine principle. Feynman, the greatest scientists have been struck by how strange this is. There is no logical necessity for a universe that obeys rules, let alone one that abides by the rules of mathematics. This astonishment springs from the recognition that the universe doesn't have to behave this way. It is easy to imagine a universe in which conditions change unpredictably from instant to instant, or even a universe in which things pop in and out of existence. Richard Feynman, Nobel Prize winner, why nature is mathematical is a mystery. The fact that there are rules at all is kind of a miracle, right? Now this is interesting because he wrote that in, I think, the 60s or 70s. He was a very popular professor after he was head of... so this is Divine Principle book. Okay, Divine Principle, 73 edition, page 52. Now this was written before Feynman said what he said. Here's what Father says. The three orderly stages of growth period. John Kenny, what happened? Yeah. Or Steve Jobs. Come on, somebody. Okay. The universe, three stages of growth period. The universe is a representation of God's essential character and form, right? So that's exactly what the scientists have been saying so far. Substantially developed according to the principle of mathematics, we may infer that God is in fact mathematical. And by the way, he wrote that decades before Feynman. So we can say mathematics, the laws of physics, are a type of image of God, a language of God. Humans have loved mathematics since the beginning of civilization. Not every human, right? Not the ones who have to do homework. They didn't like mathematics. But by the way, the Pythagoreans thought it was a Pythagorean theorem is actually was a religious cult, by the way. And they thought that mathematics is like the secret science that's spiritual and a language of God. So that's true, right? But not everybody understands mathematics. Not everyone's good at it. So here's the next part. Consummation of Human History, page 127. God's third blessing to men. When a man has perfected his individuality, he becomes one in heart and zeal with God. Thus he is able to experience God's own heart and zeal. On the day when man, after having perfected himself, comes to love the world of creation with heart and zeal identical to God's, right? The same as Jesus' words, right? And when he received the beauty returned by creation, he becomes the dominator in heart and zeal over the world of creation. So my point today is, if you're not a grandparent, or you're not in a conjugal relationship, or you don't have brothers and sisters, and by the way, even if nobody likes you, you can still find love through either mathematics or by God. Watch. So, we are able to receive God's love through intellect and mathematics, however, more easily and more universally through the beauty of nature. That means everybody, no matter what your position in the world is, God gives you the beauty of nature that you can relate to. That you can receive love through nature no matter what your position is in the world itself. Right? God's love is like a spiritual nutrition for our soul, for our spirit man, and we get the strength and love to give to other people and to actually love God with our whole heart, soul, mind, and strength. Does that make sense? So even Jesus began his ministry by going to the desert, nature, and fasting and seeking Creator for 40 days and 40 nights. And this is from Reverend Moon's biography. He says, in 1920, when I was born, Korea was under forced occupation by Japan. Even after liberation, there came the Korean War, the Asian financial crisis, and other numerous difficult crises. For many years, the land of Korea has been closely associated with peace. But these times of suffering and confusion were not matters related only to Korea. Was not been closely related to peace. The two world wars, the Vietnam War and the wars in the Middle East, show that people in the world continuously treat each other with enmity, point guns at each other, and bomb each other. Perhaps for people who experience these horrors of bloodied bodies and broken bones, peace has been something that could be imagined only in a dream, right? And by the way, Reverend Moon lived through those wars, through prison camps. He saw every horrible thing possible. And besides that, he still believed in a world of peace and a world of love. Peace, though, is not so difficult to accomplish. To begin with, we can find peace in the air we breathe, in the natural environment, and the people around us. As a child, I thought of the meadows as my home. As soon as I could wolf down my bowl of rice for breakfast, I would run out of the house and spend the entire day in the hills and streams. I could spend the day wandering about the forest with all the different birds and animals, eating herbs and wild berries, and I would never feel hungry. Any other kids do that? When I was a kid, we used to do that. Anyhow, even as a child, I knew that my mind and body were at ease anytime I went into the forest. And that's like the lesson for today. If you want rest, you want to refresh, go to nature. I would often fall asleep in the hills after playing there. My father would be forced to come find me. When I heard my father shouting in the distance, "Yang Myung, Yang Myung," I couldn't help but smile even as I slept. My name as a child was Yang Myung. The sound of his voice would awaken me, but I would still pretend to be asleep. He would hoist me onto his back and carry me home. Do you think his dad knew he was pretending? Yeah, dads all know that you're pretending. That feeling I had as he carried me home down the hill, feeling completely secure and able to let my heart be completely at ease, that was peace, right? That is how I learned about peace while being carried on my father's back. The reason I love the forest was also because all the peace in the world dwells there. Life forms in the forest do not fight each other, right? He says they occasionally eat each other and are eaten, but that is because they are hungry and need to sustain themselves. They do not fight out of enmity, right? Groups of birds don't come and attack all the bugs. They just eat bugs that they need to eat. Birds do not hate other birds. Animals do not hate other animals. Trees do not hate other trees. There needs to be an absence of enmity for peace to come. Human beings are the only ones who hate each other, other members of the same species. And some humans hate other species too. So even predators and prey live in a symbiotic relationship, which we've explained many times. Do you know what this is? This is the beauty of nature. This is called the John Muir Trail. Anybody hiked that John Muir Trail? I've hiked certain portions of it. Bob Millar hasn't? He has. Well, it's okay to raise your hand if you did. And the pastor asked, you should say yes, yes. Anyhow. Okay, this is from John Muir. Although these places of beauty were well known to American Indians and considered sacred to them, John Muir brought these places to the eyes of urban America, right? Americans, white people didn't know they existed. Indians always lived there and thought it was beautiful. And they would see white people wandering around thinking, Anyhow, according to author William Anderson, John Muir, as a result of his writings, are commonly discussed in books and journals, and he has often been quoted by nature photographers such as Ansel Adams. Muir has profoundly shaped the very categories through which Americans understand and envision their relationships with the natural world, writes Holmes. By the way, he's the founder of national parks. Without John, he convinced, who was it? Teddy Roosevelt. He got Teddy Roosevelt to camp with him at Yosemite. And Teddy Roosevelt says, "You're right, John Muir. We should make this a state park and leave it alone and not touch it, right? Muir exemplified the archetype of our oneness with the earth, while biographer Donald Worcester says he believes his mission was saving the American soul from total surrender to materialism, much like Bob Millar. Anyway, these are some of the beautiful places he went. He's discovering these for white urban America. Beautiful, right? Beautiful places, and he would talk about going to these places. I'll read his words in a second. And he was one of the first white people to go there. He worked in a mill, another connection with Bob Millar, and on the weekends and weeks he would, what's that?
He's Scottish.
And he's also Scottish. He would go out to explore these things. Now, why does this happen?
I have a feeling the computer may be timed out. You might have moved your mouse every now and then.
Okay.
I'm not sure.
Anyway, he saw this beauty and he wrote about it and he talked to people about it. And for example, Muir valued nature for its spiritual and transcendental qualities. In one essay about the national parks, he referred to them as places for rest, inspiration, and prayers. Isn't that what Reverend Moon is trying to teach us? Isn't that what we're trying to accomplish with our lives? That's why we say loving God and being in nature are synonymous. If we recognize that nature is a gift from God. Some people go there and just think they're trees, or they're mountains, or they're waters, or whatever. They don't recognize that this is the parental love of God. He often encouraged city dwellers to experience nature for its spiritual nourishment. But as Muir became attached to the American natural landscapes he explored, Williams notes that he began to see another primary source for understanding God. Isn't that true? If we want to understand God, but you're not relating to those other things, nature is the place to go. The book of nature, right? Primary source for understanding God, the book of nature. According to whether you do it through science or you throw it to just loving creation, it's the same language. According to Williams, in nature, especially in the wilderness, Muir was able to study the plants and animals in an environment that he believed came straight from the hand of God, uncorrupted by civilization and domestication. Is that very different than Faraday or Einstein or Planck? It's the same language, isn't it? It's the same language, or true parents, it's the same language. As Talmage notes, Muir's belief in this book of nature compelled him to tell the story of this creation in words any reader could understand. As a result, his writings were to become prophecy, for they sought to change our angle of vision. And then this is just some of the places he went to. And that was the same with Father. When Father began his ministry, Reverend Song would say, where did Father take the members on Sunday? They would go to nature. They would have picnics in the park. And that's why we did the same thing in San Diego many years ago, right? We would start God's Day every year by going to the nature, whether it was the beach or other parts of the nature or the mountains. You remember? Remember, that's David right there. And Lucas, anybody else? Patrick, I think. Is that I don't know. Anyhow, we went dozens of places because why? We wanted our children to grow up in nature and see nature as much as possible from true parents' eyes. Right? Here's some of the Millars now, and Young Gun, and Mikey, Sam. Anyhow, all kinds of kids. We did all kinds of things with them, taking them into nature, taking them to be part of the natural creation. Whether it's the ocean, there it is there, look at that. Dad and little girl in the ocean. Kind of get more realistic than that. We went to the nature in every aspect and form because we wanted our children to see God's idea of what nature is. Right? There's Marceline. Other kids. More kids. Nina. Is that Alexandra? Sorry, Alex is not here. April 2011, spelunking in Anza-Borrega with Uncle Bob Millar. Right? Bob Millar. There he is now. Eating all natural food stuff. No GMO, no sugar, just plain yogurt. Absolutely. There he is, strengthening his body. And so we went all over. We went to the mountains, we went to the caves, we went all over with all our kids. David Roberts actually led them through the caves. But look, we loved our kids. The important thing is we loved our kids and tried hard to just nourish our kids with nature, with friendship, with family, with friends, in caves, outside of caves. That's Suyapa. Anyhow, we had a good time with the kids, and we thought it was important because that's part of their growth. And by the way, Father did this with his church when he was a leader of the church in Seoul or Busan or wherever it was. They would go to picnics, play out in nature, see things. You remember Reverend Song would say when he was with True Father in their picnics, they would see who could throw the rock further than anybody else. You know who could throw the rock furthest? True Father, of course. As Reverend Song said, look, I was much younger. I was half his age. I could not throw a rock as far as Father could throw a rock. Anyhow, all these things we did because we loved our kids, wanted them to have a good time, and wanted them to think that nature is God's kingdom. I don't know what happened. I don't know what happened to Nina.
Nina saw the truth of it all.
There's Mai. Here's Mai and Lucas, Hannah. Who's that? I don't know. Sam. There we are. There's Calvin. I wanted Calvin to be here for this. I think that's Sirius, Mai, Hiromi-san, Bob, John Muir Millar. Taking us out exploring. There's Israel. Mai again on the hill. Anyway, Kazu. We haven't seen Kazu for a while. So anyhow, God bless our kids and God bless nature. The point is, nature is a place to go when you're tired. When you're tired and you don't know what to do, go out into nature. That's what Father says. Camping. More camping. Oh, there was Calvin. Looking quite handsome, actually. And still, there's Uncle Bob Millar, prepared for the worst.
That's Haley?
Haley dog. Haley passed away recently,
Yeah,
unfortunately.
she had cancer.
Nina and Hannah, Wesley. That's Wesley. Is that Wesley? Yeah, I think so. Anyhow, rainbows. Uncle Bob, John Moore Millar, would take us out to all these places. Look, isn't that beautiful?
Look at that.
We'd take our kids there when we had a chance. We should go there again. We're thinking of things to do with our community that Second Gen would appreciate doing with us. All our kids, look at young men, young women, handsome still. Wow, ruggedly handsome pastor of the Unification Church. Solange, Suntan Solange. Anyhow, we love all our kids and we hope they're well. But the purpose of this sermon isn't just to talk about our kids. We love our kids, right? That should give everybody inspiration. This is 1 Kings 19. Elijah escapes from Jezebel. You guys remember the story of Elijah, right? He's up on the hill. He ends the drought. He causes the drought for 3 years. He tells Jezebel and King Ahab are worshippers of the god Baal and the Ashtoreth, which was temple prostitution and sacrificing living children to Baal. It was really horrible. God hated those things, and he called on Elijah to stop those things. So he challenges all the priests of Baal to a miracle work on Mount Carmel, right? And he says, you guys make your altar, and you guys can pray and do whatever you do, and I'll make my altar, and whoever God accepts, that's who the people have to follow. Right, to the gods of Baal, pour oil on the altar, and then they call on the Baal to set it on fire and receive the offering, but nothing happens. Then Elijah tells the Jewish people, put water on mine. And they put water on it, and then he calls God to accept the offering and burst into flames. Then he says, see, this is the God of Israel. And then they kill 400 priests of Baal. And then what happens is King Ahab and Jezebel, instead of being converted by the power of Elijah, that was Elijah's job, by the way, to convert Ahab and Jezebel, not just the people. He was supposed to crown a new king, King Jehu, over the Israelite and Judean people, but he failed because Ahab and Jezebel still hated his guts and promised to kill him. So the next scene of the story is he's running away. And he's running away because they're come to kill him. And Ahab had told Jezebel and all that Elijah had done, also how he executed all the prophets with the sword. Then Jezebel sent a messenger to Elijah personally saying, so let the gods do to me and more also, if I do not make your life as the life of one of them by tomorrow about this time. And when he saw that, he arose and ran for his life and went to Beersheba, which belongs to Judah, and left his servant there. So Elijah's running in terror from Jezebel. Not a bad idea. Not a bad idea. For example, if Abel had run from Cain for his life, maybe Cain would still be alive. Maybe Abel would still be alive, and then God would bless Abel, he would get married and new children, and somehow they would deal with Cain. Or when Eve comes to tempt Adam, if Adam had run for his life, then maybe he would have been able to heal Eve and heal Lucifer, and it would have been the kingdom of heaven. But those guys didn't run. They got killed. Just like Father, after Hung Nam prison, decided to run from the communists. Is that a good idea? Absolutely, it's good. Sometimes it's good to run, and we should realize that. If Cain's really going to kill you, it might not be a bad idea to escape. Don't give him a baseball bat as a Christmas present. Anyway, so he runs away, and here's what he says. He says, but he himself went a day's journey into the wilderness and came and sat down under a broom tree, and he prayed that he might die. Because he's worn out, he's exhausted. He had this battle with these priests and with Ahab for a long time. He says, it's enough. Now, Lord, take my life, for I am no better than my fathers. Do you know what he means? He means he didn't convince Ahab and Jezebel. That's his problem. He couldn't convince the king and queen. By the way, this is why he's going to return in Jesus' time as John the Baptist. And what's John the Baptist's job? To convince Herod that Jesus is the rightful king. The reason John the Baptist failed is he did not crown Jesus king of Israel. And that's the same problem that Elijah had. That's why he's going to get a second chance at that. But anyway, it didn't work. Then he lay and slept under a broom tree. Suddenly an angel touched him and said to him, arise and eat. Then he looked, and there by his head was a cake baked on coals and a jar of water. So he ate and drank and lay down again, and the angel of the Lord came back a second time and touched him and said, arise and eat, because the journey is too great for you. So here's the important point. Escaping isn't bad. It's better than getting killed or whatever happens to you, and it's also better than giving up. Just give up. Don't do that either. So God appreciates Elijah's work, even though Elijah failed to convince the king and queen. He failed in his mission, right? Nevertheless, God still loves him. And I think it's important for us to understand that God still loves us no matter how we think about our mission or our lives. God still loves you. That's important to remember. Because if you don't remember that, then you may not have strength to go on. You may not think that I should continue. So he arose and ate and drank, and he went in the strength of that food 40 days and 40 nights as far as Horeb, the mountain of God. My main point is that what does God do to him? God sends him to nature and tells him to rest, and sends an angel to cook for him. He sends an angel to cook for him. I don't know if you'll ever get an angel to cook for you. You can just buy a cake if you want, or whatever you need to eat. But the point is, God wants him to restore his strength and love him. Does that make sense? So, life is hard. To be able to have the strength and peace of mind to live through it and thrive, you need a source of love, and that love has to be God. It's good if, like I said, you're in a relationship, you're a grandparent or parent or child, or you have brothers and sisters, you have someone who's going to take care of you. That's good. Everybody has nature. Everybody has the beauty of nature to revive your spirits, right? The love of God himself. Mark 12:30-31. Love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul, with all your mind, and with all your strength is not a one-way street. It's not just you love God and then you die. It's not so. God will always continue to love you and appreciate us, you and us, for our work and our efforts. So don't give up. It doesn't just mean you give everything to God and then God doesn't care. It means a symbiotic relationship between you and God, the true parents of all mankind, who loves you no matter what. Our principle of creation explains a very powerful aspect of God's beauty, to receive love and to grow spiritually. Amen? Amen. Amen. Thank you very much. I hope that's interesting to you.